Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'll be sharing my thoughts on The Walking Dead Season 10 Episode 22. As is the norm with all my videos, I won't be holding back on any spoilers, so please do keep that in mind. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. Here's Negan has landed, and it's the episode that fans have been waiting for since it was teased in the Season 10C trailer. The question is, however, does this episode live up to the hype and the excitement? I would say yes. I mean, this is an absolutely fantastic episode of The Walking Dead. Like the episodes that came before it in 10C, it doesn't really advance the plot forward, but that doesn't matter because what we do see is an interesting and heartfelt story. And yeah, it just feels like a brilliant mini story, a brilliant episode. And you know, it's worth a watch, unlike the Daryl and Carol episode that we got last week. I think this is a brilliant episode. It's up there with some of the best of The Walking Dead ever made, and I mean, it's easily the best of Season 10C, so let's talk about it. Things begin with Maggie walking around Alexandria with Herschel Jr., and she walks past Negan, who is doing some repairs to Alexandria and helping out after the damage caused by the Whisperer herd. Carol then takes Negan out for a walk outside Alexandria, and the two come to an overgrown, abandoned house, and Carol then says to Negan that that's where he's going to be staying because he's been exiled, he'll have to live there because there's no way that he and Maggie can live together. Negan enters the house, and then we see almost like a hallucination of Negan that we saw in season 7 and 8. So Negan's there in his leather jacket and Lucille and saying, "Oh, little pig, let me in," or whatever. And Negan just looks at him and says, "Oh, you're a joke. What are you doing? You're a joke." And yeah, this is what I predicted would happen in the season 10C trailer. However, I am surprised that Negan, when he recounts his story and we learn about what happened to Lucille, I am always imagined him talking to someone about it. So I thought we'd see him telling it to Carol or telling it to Maggie, but that doesn't happen. It's just Negan on his own and him reflecting on his past. So to be honest though, I don't think it hurts the story that Negan isn't telling it to anyone. You know, it might have been not what I expected, but yeah, still a fantastic episode. So a major change to the comics is that Lucille is alive when the Walker outbreak happens, and I think this is actually a fantastic change from the source material because it just makes her story all the more tragic. I mean, can you imagine being diagnosed with cancer and you're so close to beating it, and then the world goes to shit and that's it, you're on your own, there's no doctors, you haven't got any treatment, you can't get a checkup, and yeah, you finally, you know, think you're beating this horrible illness and then everything goes to shit. So I just think it makes her and Negan's story even more tragic and even more heartfelt, and I like that change. And of course Negan has to try and find medicine to help Lucille survive, and you know, try and find a doctor and try and find supplies in this post-apocalyptic world. And it kind of made me think back to season 2's Vatos, when we saw that group care for the elderly, because it's not something that's really touched upon in this genre. People who are ill or the elderly are often the forgotten people. We don't really follow them and we don't really, you know, see how it would be for them. So I thought it was unique in that regards, and Vatos is another episode that I really liked, and I know a lot of people are fond of that episode as well. It was season 1, wasn't it? Was it season 1, not season 2? Vatos? I think it was season 1 anyway. But yeah, no, I liked that. I liked that we saw it from this angle, and like I said, it's horrific, really. You know, it's bad enough that the world goes to shit, but it goes to shit after you've dealt with having cancer, and then you've got to deal with all this on top, and you know that you're probably never going to get your cancer treatment. So yeah, it's a really kind of dark and a sad story. It certainly helps that Hilary Burton's Lucille is extremely likable. I mean, she's funny, she's clever, she's cute, and she's a badass. I mean, there's a scene where Negan is struggling with a walker, and he's struggling to fight it off because it's early days, and you know, he's not the man he is now. And then Lucille comes up and she walks outside the garden, shoots it in the head, and she does that whilst bringing along, you know, her stand and her chemo medicine. And I was just like, wow, that's amazing that this woman who's should be weak and frail or whatever because she's, you know, having treatment for cancer, she finds the strength to come outside with her medicine and save her husband. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. Lucille and Negan have fantastic chemistry in this episode, which is to be expected seeing as Lucille is being played by JDM's real life wife. Maybe they should have got Diane Kruger to play Leah in the Daryl episode, because whereas that relationship, it just felt completely forced and unnatural, this felt natural because these two are actually in a relationship. So yeah, maybe they should have got Daryl's actual partner to play his girlfriend on the show, because that relationship fell flat for me. But this one, they were on the screen the same amount of time as Daryl and Leah were, only for one episode, but yeah, this relationship I found completely believable. I really felt for Lucille when she found out about her cancer diagnosis. So she asked Negan to go attend the doctors with her, and then Negan said that he couldn't because he had to attend a probation meeting. And then it turns out that he didn't actually have a probation meeting. It wasn't until 2 weeks' time, and he lied to her about that so he could go see his other woman. And yeah, I mean, it's bad enough being told you have cancer without your partner there, but the fact that her partner, Negan, didn't attend because he was sleeping with someone else, I mean, Jesus, that's just horrific. And I'm glad that this episode didn't shy away from Negan being a dick, because Negan has said many, many times that he treated Lucille wrong and that, he cheated on her and he did these, this, that, whatever. So I'm glad that it didn't just paint this relationship as a picturesque, happy relationship. Certainly not 100% of the time anyway. And because it shows what Negan did in the past, that then causes us to have this lovely scene where Lucille says to Negan she knew about it all along, and that Negan kind of questions why she's stuck with him, and why she's only bringing this up now. And then she says to him, oh, well, you've more than made up for it because of what you've done. And that's really sweet. And again, it makes her, in my opinion, even more likeable, even more genuine, because she has the power to forgive Negan and compassionate enough to forgive him despite what he did to her. So yeah, I just really liked her character. The fact that Lucille found it in herself to forgive Negan, I think that just caused Negan to harbour even more guilt and more anger and more regret when she did die. And it just helps to make things even more tragic. And Negan, he is an arsehole in season 7 and 8. We know that. Everyone knows that by now. But again, this does make him somewhat sympathetic, and I did empathise with him this episode. I mean, I think he's done a lot of good in the last couple of seasons anyway, but yeah, this kind of gives a more understanding of his character. Again, it doesn't excuse what he'd done, but I can definitely sympathise with him. Lucille's death is pretty devastating because we all know it's going to happen, right? We're all watching this episode and we know at some point that she's going to die, and I guess I was holding out hope that maybe she escaped and maybe she does actually live. That would be quite a shock if that did happen. But yeah, we all knew it was going to come, and I was kind of filled with this sense of dread throughout the episode because I was thinking, right, I know she's going to die, but I don't want it to happen. Negan leaves Lucille to scavenge some medicine for her, and after he gets the medicine, he gets captured by this group of arseholes who want to find out where the doctor was and where he got the meds from. And Negan eventually gives up the location of this doctor and Laura, who's also with the doctor. And yeah, Laura's in this episode, which is not what I expected, to be honest. It was cool to see her, but I don't know, it kind of made me feel that her sort of anticlimactic death at the hands of Beta. Was it this season? Because it's been like, I mean, this season, it seems like this season's gone on forever. I suppose it has been over a year and a half now, isn't it? This season's been going, but yeah, it kind of made me feel like her death felt even more pointless, because I'm guessing she was like one of the first saviors if Negan met her this episode. But the show didn't really do anything with her after the Savior War ended. She was just there. So yeah, I mean, it was nice seeing her, but it also just made me feel like her character was just wasted on this show. Anyway, Negan does manage to get home with the meds, but he gets there and it's too late. Lucille has put a bag on her head and she's killed herself. And I mean, as tragic as her death was, I kind of just feel like I wish the reason as to why she killed herself was a bit obvious. I mean, I think I understand now, but when I first watched it, I was just thinking to myself, why has she done this? Even my girlfriend turned around and said, why has she done this? And it wasn't made apparent to me, at least, immediately why she killed herself. I was just a bit confused. Negan had come back and I was like, oh, she's dead. Okay. But we hear in dialogue at the end of the episode, Negan says he ran away from Lucille because he couldn't face her dying. And prior to Negan leaving, Lucille does say to him, oh, please don't go, stay with me. So perhaps Lucille knew she was going to die. Perhaps she knew the meds weren't going to work. Perhaps at this point she wasn't responding to cancer treatments and she was going to die anyway. So then maybe that's why she killed herself, because she knew she was going to die. Or maybe Negan was gone for so long that she started running out of food and water and couldn't look after herself, so decided to kill herself. Or I don't know. I mean, I was going to say maybe she thought Negan wasn't going to come back, but she wrote a sign on the wall saying, Negan, don't leave me like this. So she knew Negan would make it back eventually. I wish it was a bit clearer. I think I've got to just do it now. I think it's because she knew she was going to die. And like I said, because Negan says this line about him running away because he wanted to avoid her death because he was scared, I'm assuming that that's correct. But I don't know. I just wish it was made a bit clearer. But yeah, let me know what you think below. Maybe that was just me. Maybe that's just my silly reaction upon seeing it first. I don't know. Also, Lucille did really remind me of Alpha when she was dead with the bag on her head, with her bald head. And I think that was a really good throwback to Alpha and Negan, because I remember Negan saying to Alpha that she reminded him of Lucille, and yeah, I just thought, that must have been intentional, right? They must have done that on purpose. So that was, I like that, that was really clever. After Lucille dies, Negan goes back to the building where he was captured and exacts his revenge on the group that captured him. And this is where we really see him transform into the Negan that we came to see when he was introduced at the end of season 6, the start of season 7. And I just think that this scene is absolutely fantastic. I mean, the soundtrack is on point. It has the same sort of noises that were used when Negan had Rick's group lined up, and his monologue is fantastic. And I would say that Negan's speech is arguably better than the speeches he made to Rick's group at the end of season 6 and the start of season 9. He basically tells a story about actions having consequences, and he says that he got into a fight with this guy at a bar because he was being really obnoxious and talking over Lucille's favourite song, and he asked him to stop, or Lucille asked him to stop, and he wouldn't listen, so he went over there and basically beat the shit out of him. And then because this guy's kid went to the same school that Negan taught at, I think Negan said he ended up losing his job as a result of that, and he had to pay this guy's medical bills. So he's basically making a point that in the old world, actions had consequences, and that he was wrong for doing this. But then he kind of turns around and says, that's not the case anymore. No one's going to sue me if I crack your head open. I'm not going to get in trouble, so I can do what I like, and it's just a matter of seeing how far I can go. And yeah, then he kills the dude, and I was just like, I thought that speech was amazing. It was really damn creepy, and it was just Negan just sort of letting go and saying, you know what, I don't give a shit anymore. I can do what I want. Who's going to stop me? And that's what he's like when we see him at the start of season 6, season 7. And like I mentioned earlier, him losing Lucille again doesn't make his actions right, but I can empathise with him. I can understand he's angry. I can understand he doesn't give a shit about anyone anymore. His wife is gone. Why does he care about anyone else? And characters in The Walking Dead, they all process grief in different ways. I mean, Morgan has gone from being a pacifist to killing people to being pacifist and killing people again because of him losing his wife and losing his son. I mean, every time Rick has a bereavement or something happens to his family, he just goes on a murder spree, basically. So, I mean, our characters, they all process grief differently. I mean, you could arguably say that Negan took it very too far, and yeah, the stuff he did is unforgivable. But I kind of understand it more now after watching this episode than I did prior to it. Sadly, this episode doesn't expand upon the creation of the Saviours, and we don't see Negan join them and then take over the Saviours like we do in the comic book. But I guess with Corona, it's kind of impossible to get all the Saviour lieutenants together and to do this. And also, I don't really think it matters that much. I mean, this episode is about Negan and Lucille's story. I mean, I think if you added an extra 10-15 minutes to the episode and it showed Negan joining the Saviours and showed Simon and all these Saviours and then taking over, it would just take something away from it. It would just take away from the focus of the episode. So this episode is just about Negan and Lucille, and yeah, I don't really think the episode missed out on much by not including that, to be honest. So in the present, Negan digs up Lucille and he goes back to the cabin, and then he burns Lucille, and he basically says that he's not going to run away anymore like he did previously. And what this basically means is that Negan is going to go back to Alexandria and he's going to face up to what he's done and he's going to live there. Carol said that Maggie might kill him, but so be it. He's not going to run anymore. He's going to fight for his place, and he believes he belongs there now after what he's done. So I like that, and it's a major change from the comics, because in the comics Negan does just sort of go and live in a house and he just stays there and he's exiled, and that's it. That's how his story ends in the comics. So it's a major change now that we're going to have Negan in season 11, and again, I like that because I think Negan has been one of the best parts of the show in the last 2 years, and I'm glad that we're going to see more of him. Despite being a fan of this change, I found it a bit weird, his reaction when he went back into Alexandria and he sort of gave this smirk to Maggie, and it was almost as if he was taunting Maggie. Like, I get it, Negan, you don't want to run away, you want to stay where you are, but you did kill this woman's husband. Don't go in smirking and taunting the girl. And I think that kind of took away a bit from this episode, because I was feeling sympathetic towards Negan and empathising with him, and then he just walks in all cocky and gives this smirk to Maggie, and I was just like, you're a dick, what are you doing? So I don't know, maybe I misinterpreted that bit wrong, but I just found it really weird that he would just walk back and sort of, to me looks like taunting Maggie. So yeah, I didn't really like that. I also found it very almost laughable when he's walking with Carol at the start of the episode and he's talking about Maggie. And he says to her, oh, any chance you can smooth things over? You killed the dude's husband, man. Like, what does he expect Carol to do? To go up to Maggie and go, oh, yeah, Negan's nice now. Can you forgive him? Can you be friends with him? Shake hands and make up? I was like, what is going on here? I mean, that was yeah, I just found that to be a really bad line of dialogue in an episode that doesn't have bad dialogue really. You know, the rest of it was outstanding, and that just seemed really out of place. Anyway, bar those minor complaints, there isn't really anything else that I can complain about. I thought this was a fantastic episode. I mean, it's easily the best of 10C. You know, it was worth the wait. I still think that 10C, it could have been 2 or 3 episodes because, you know, I really only really enjoyed the Aaron and Gabe one prior to this, and I thought the first one was okay, but yeah, it's been kind of a struggle to get to this point. But, you know, this episode was absolutely fantastic, and I hope people stuck around to see it, because I know the numbers were dropping the last couple of weeks because the last few episodes weren't great, but I much preferred the TV show version of Here's Negan to the comic books. I mean, I don't know if any of you watched it, but I did review the Here's Negan comic book on this channel, it must have been a couple of years ago now, and I reviewed it, and I was rather lukewarm to it. I remember saying in that video that only sort of the hardcore Negan fans might get something out of it. I just didn't really think it was that good, to be honest, in, you know, the comic book. So, but I feel completely different about the TV show version. I think this is so much better, and I think it's just a fantastic episode. And this is how you do these smaller focused episodes. This is what 10C should have been like, really. I think, you know, the Gabe and Aaron episode was probably not as good as this, but I don't think it was far behind in terms of quality. But then, yeah, even though I liked the first one, episode 17, it has a lot wrong with it, to be honest. But, you know, it's a very good point to end on. I think this was a fantastic episode, and you can watch it even if you decide to skip the rest of 10C. So yeah, fantastic episode. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Apologies for this episode being a bit late. I just haven't really had the time to record this week. But I will be back very soon, because I think Fear the Walking Dead is back this week. I think you might already be able to see the first episode early, so I'll be back on that reviewing Fear the Walking Dead, and let's hope it's as good as the first half of the season. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.